look at whatever your competitive framework is, right? Like, other dog foods or whatever it is. And you look around and you say, what are the big things that they're known for, that they're communicating? How is my product different? And what is the organization? What gets us up in the morning that brings us to compete that's really different and unique about our products?
Yeah.
So at Champion, the amount of meat in our products, the percentage of the recipe that's animal ingredients, people believe in this very strongly. And a lot of our competitors are, offering much less real meat in their products, and dogs are carnivores and all that good stuff. Yeah. So people are passionate about it. And I think you have to do that exercise of what business are we really in, and what's really unique about what we're doing, and put all the facts or all the dream language out on a page, and then figure out if they cluster together, if there's certain clusters you want to focus on. And then once you really get there, then you're into the wordsmithing of what's the perfect way to say it.
Everybody, welcome to today's show. I'm so excited. I have to tell you, I stalked this lady a little bit on LinkedIn and what she was doing and her company is doing. So I'm really excited to dig in. So Jennifer, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to join you.
So let's start with a little bit about you, and then we can dig into kind of why I wanted you on the show. So let's just tell everybody, you're our Futuristic collaborative. That's your Everyday Innovator style. And for those of you who don't know yours, or don't know what that means yet, Futuristic's all about 10 steps ahead, today's problems are tomorrow's opportunities. And collaborative is all about pulling disparate people and ideas and experiences together to create a whole innovation. So what a cool combination, because on one hand, you're very you're pulling all these insights and data and experiences together, and then you're able to push into the future. So very cool. Tell us a little bit about how you think about igniting innovation in your day-to-day world.
Yeah, I think that title, the Futuristic Collaborator, is actually pretty on point for me, because I do like to think big and think about the future and challenge why things are the way they are. But I also like to consult the experts and make the case for how it could be different. So I'm not a pie in the sky type of person. I have when it comes to trying to sell it into the organization or make things happen, having a pretty solid case and having, consulted and having alignment of key peers and stakeholders is always part of the equation for me. So I can't fully believe in it until I've got that kind of dossier of support. And then it's kind of unstoppable.
Do you think, I just have a quick question, because what you said is kind of interesting to me. Do you think that your ability, though, to think into the future really does help push other people there too? Because I'm an experiential risk taker, so I'm all about the here and now. And sometimes I need people like you to push me into the future a little bit, because I'm so focused on what's right in front of me.
Yeah, I definitely think that's why collaboration is so key, right? Because you have people that maybe I'm way too far out, you're way too in the present, so we can somehow meet in the middle.
Yeah, I like that. I like that way of thinking about it. So tell us a little bit about you, kind of what you're passionate about, your role at Champion, and why you love dogs, which I don't know why I even have to ask that. It's so obvious, because dogs are amazing. But tell us about you.
How can you not like dogs?
I mean,
so I'm a veteran marketer. I've got over 20 years of experience in various CPG companies. I would say the key things I love about my job is I'm passionate about creating brands that people are proud to support. So, nowadays it's not just enough to sell a product, but to have a brand that people want to identify with and almost vote for with their dollars, vote for with their social media posts, et cetera. That's really the holy grail. And then the other piece is serving unmet needs. So being a bit of a sleuth in terms of the consumer research, the consumer trends, and finding things either that people say they need that they don't yet have, or finding things that they may need that they don't yet realize they need. Those types of things. I think it's amazing. Marketing never ceases to amaze me, how you can come up with the new, next, better, more delightful option. And that's kind of part of what makes it a lot of fun. I am a dog fanatic. I have 3 rescue dogs. Dogs have always been part of my life. I think They bring unconditional love and also physical activity. And those are two things that I can't get enough of. So it's a great combo. So after years in kind of mostly human food companies, I had the opportunity to join Champion as their head of their dog portfolio. And it was pretty much a dream job. Also, just the pet care industry is just taken off, before and through the pandemic. It's something that people are increasingly finding room for in their lives as workplaces become more flexible. And even in times of stress, realizing how much having a pet can help you get through your day to day and enjoy your life, make your family time more fun, et cetera. So it's just a great industry to be a part of. And so it was really a great match when I found Champion and had the chance to kind of make something I was so enthusiastic about also be part of my job.
I mean, we could have a whole podcast just on how amazing dogs are, but I wanted, because I love them so much too, but I want to talk about you a little bit and kind of tell the audience a little bit about why I reached out to you, why I was stalking you a little bit. And that is because something that Champion did in particular. So will you share a little bit about that? Because I think what you've done for rescue dogs in particular is so innovative.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my favorite topic. So, as we all know, during the pandemic, there was a lot of dogs being adopted, a lot of discussion about, these dogs and what condition are they in and how will they fare through the pandemic and after the pandemic, when everyone goes back to work. It was so topical. And it really made us wonder at Champion, there's lots of puppy food out there, but actually there are more adult dogs rescued than puppies. And are there foods that are tailored to the needs of a dog that's been on a very diverse diet, from being in the street to being in a shelter where they're being fed, various, diets that are available or donated? Why isn't there a product line that would serve these pets? And so the idea was hatched to investigate what would it take, what would be unique about a product for rescue dogs, and then also how could we make the product line itself benefit rescue dogs. So we did research with shelters to talk about kind of what do they see in dogs in terms of digestive problems, things that different support that they need that could be provided by food. And then also what ways could a company partner with rescues to make the whole process better and to make more adoption successful. So the product is part of a whole proposition that we've launched at Acana, where we have the rescue care product, which does have its special ingredients and formulation for digestion, for immunity, even calming ingredients like chamomile that are sort of intended for the stressful transitions that these dogs are in. But also we reached out and formed a partnership with Best Friends Animal Society so that the proceeds of this line, or a large amount of the proceeds of this line, will be going to support rescue shelters. They have 7 life-saving shelters around the country. We'll be able to feed all of their animals rescue care, get feedback from the shelters, and also hopefully have, be giving back in this big way that makes the product line more meaningful for people. Because rescuing isn't just what you would feed isn't just a purely analytical decision, but it's also that kind of emotional state that you're in when you're adopting, you're welcoming this animal that you don't have all the background like you would with a breeder, et cetera. And knowing that by buying this food, you're actually helping to support other rescues, I think really rounds out the product and makes it that much more meaningful.
Well, and I would say that those of us that have rescue dogs, which a lot of us are very passionate about having rescue dogs, like actually taking that path. I got a couple questions for you because I think the whole journey is so interesting. And I just want to pull out some of the nuggets of insight that you said. And especially because, as you're talking, of course, I'm thinking about when I rescued my Zoe bear and she was so skittish and nervous. And then I was nervous and we had no idea, where we don't really know the story behind her, but she's so wonderful. So it's like the best decision we ever made. But the question I have for you is there's 2 things you said in there that I think are really important for listeners across the globe to really hear. And one is you were talking about finding a niche that other people weren't serving. So there's all this puppy stuff, right? But really it's actually adult dogs at shelters, but nobody's really serving them. And the second part of that was kind of this partnerships and outreach and creating community around it. I wonder if you would just share a little bit about your journey at Champion and Acana and putting those things together to kind of move this idea forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that One of the challenges with a product like this is it's maybe not a forever food, right? It's something that people are going to feed during the transition. So how do you find those people that are right, in that moment of about to adopt or having just adopted, and then, or within the 9 months or however long they might consider that they're in a transition. So really spending time researching things with shelters, with shelter communities, with other rescue parents really helped us to understand more how to target those consumers so they would be aware of the food. And then as we worked through that, we found that, the giving back, having that donation piece was going to be very meaningful. Yeah. But also that having our products in shelters where people would, be bringing their pet home and actually have a sample of the food or the recommendation of the food was probably the best way that we could be in the right place at the right time. And so, but in terms of like organizationally and getting people, behind it, because obviously that was a whole other layer of investment, right? Developing, launching the product, and then having this charitable component. It was really a matter of a little bit of the future play of, think about what we could build in the future for the equity for this product and for this brand. And then also think about the on the ground impact of being able to actually have a place, a rightful place in shelters where we can be interacting with our audience. So a bit of that combination of that belief in the future benefit, and then balancing that with what we saw as an immediate benefit to sales as well.
So what I love about what you're saying, Jennifer, and I think is so important for all of us to listen to is that like constant feedback of figuring out what you don't know and what you think you know, but maybe you're like, that's kind of a hypothesis we have internally. Was there anything as you went out to the shelters and talked to dog owners that surprised you? Like, oh, I didn't realize this about this community, or kind of what was needed out here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the thing that surprised me the most is just how time-strapped and overwhelmed shelters are. I mean, it is so difficult. Here I am, a marketer with a large pet food company, and I'm leaving messages for people saying, I'd like to talk with you about potentially donating food and, things like that. And they don't have time to call you back, even though they need the food, because they're so short-staffed. So it's really eye-opening to think about how you can, when you're working with shelters, how you can make it simpler for them. And then also for us, like finding some scale so that we could collaborate with like Best Friends Animal Society, because they had, 7 centers. They could participate in things like promotions that we might want to do that require a whole bunch of regulatory paperwork and things like that. So not saying that you don't work with the smaller shelters, but you sort of have to do what you can with smaller shelters. But if you want to have a larger program, you sometimes have to find a network that kind of has some of that backing and some of that scale, because your day-to-day shelters are just keeping up. They're just staying, in business, really. And it's really a really tough time for them now. There's a huge influx of pets, and we're going to be doing a campaign around adopting like this fall, because there's with many of the after effects of the pandemic, disasters, et cetera. And without people being at home for the first time, they've been home longer now, right? So not necessarily thinking about another pet, and the shelters need your adoption more than ever.
So that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that we were all home and now we're not. I mean, my job is so flexible and I'm home or I'm traveling, but I don't go into a traditional office. So I guess you're right. I hadn't really thought about like during the pandemic, I thought I should have 8 dogs. That would make a lot of sense, right? I mean, exactly. Is that exactly what I need in downtown Denver?
Exactly.
What's one thing, and I feel like you kind of answered it in what you were just talking about, but maybe there's another there. One thing that you think that Champion or Acana, the brand in particular for rescue dogs, has done that's really innovative and helped you really succeed in what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the more innovative things that we did is, in lieu of a traditional advertising campaign, we actually recruited people that were planning on adopting a dog. Mm-hmm. And we gave them food, our new food, and we asked them to document their journey with their new pet. So we actually, created our campaign through their, mobile phone footage of, their trials and tribulations with their new pet. And we got a real authentic point of view. We got feedback on the food, but we also got, the challenges that come at the beginning of the adoption and kind of the euphoria that comes when you really realize that you've made that bond with your pet. And the whole time you're just waiting for it to click, and you're waiting for those magic moments where you feel that partnership with your dog. And so we're really, really excited about that advertising campaign. And we're finding it's performing really well because it is really authentic, and it really appeals to that emotion of adoption.
So I love that for so many reasons. And I think, like I said, as a dog owner, like half my Instagram is my dog. Like forget my kids, my boyfriend, like none of that stuff. It's all my dog. So, but I want to actually just highlight two things that you said, Jennifer, that I think are so cool. One is what you just said, which is that like you had real people tell you their stories versus you telling them what you wanted them to think. And that is such a flip on marketing, I think. And I just think that's really innovative and really powerful. And for those watching or listening or reading it later, I would think about how you can engage customers. I think all too often we put up this brick wall of like, here in the company, whoever we are, solopreneur or Procter & Gamble, like whatever, we put up this brick wall and we go, we got to do all this stuff internally. And then we go tell our customers. But I think our customers are way more interested in being a part of the journey than we give them credit for. So and with dogs especially, I mean, they're our family. The second thing that you said is about going for larger shelters as well as the smaller ones. And to me, that's an innovative way to think about how do I make an impact and go bigger so that I can serve the smaller ones too. So I love those both things. I just wanted to take a second to pause on those and say that for those listening, I think that's a really powerful way to think about innovation, but also making an impact.
Thanks.
Yeah. So let's flip it for a second, because I got to know, what are some of the challenges that you faced in your role and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that for me, a lot of marketing is storytelling. So, when I first join a brand or have a role in creating a brand, it's like you're in love and you want to write the love letter of your brand. Well, in human food or pet food or supplements, which I've also worked in, there are regulatory rules and regulations that are really designed to homogenize all of these products.
Yeah.
And so to be able to find that love letter, to be able to extol the benefits of your product, the points of difference of your product within the range of what is generally approved to be said. So that you're not stretching it to too much of a claim or things like it can be really hard, but it also can be really fun. And I think that that's something that I've learned over the years. You have to keep your legal team and your creative teams really close, one on either side, so that as really cool creative ideas come about of how to talk about a product, that you can right away be getting feedback, and even have the two of them in the same brainstorming session, so that the legal team is saying, oh, damn it, we should be able to say that. Like, let's think about this. What would prevent us from doing that? How great is the risk of doing that type of thing? Because, of course, we never want to misrepresent anything. We don't want to undersell amazing attributes of products either. So I think that is one of the biggest things is how do you get your point of difference and your call to action through while still, particularly in a category like food where it's highly, highly regulated, where you're still meeting all of the requirements,
right?
You're still breaking through. It's like an extra barrier that you have to work through in the process.
But I think, Jennifer, what you said about having legal in the brainstorm, I think the mistake that we as humans often make in business is we don't include legal, accounting, like the roles that we don't deem as creative. But I have found in my career, and that there's a whole story that we don't have time to go into around Steve, this creative guy at ad agency I was working at when I was early in my career, who didn't show up. It was actually the accounting guy and the media woman who came up with the strategy for the year because our creative guy wasn't there. So I love what you're saying. And I think that's a lesson for all of us to remember that, hey, those people they can be in the room, not just for your buy-in, but they have ideas too. Everybody's an everyday innovator. That's what I love about it. And I will just tell you that very early on in my career, I was working on a creative campaign and we got 80% down the road. And then I was on the 12th floor as an account coordinator, which meant I was the junior of the junior of the junior. And I went up to the 25th floor, which was legal, which was very like the leather chairs and the green carpet. Like it was a whole different world. And they shot it down. And the amount of time I wasted moving this idea forward, had I just brought them into the process early, it probably actually would have improved the idea and I would have had buy-in, or I would have figured out how to do it. and gotten innovative about it. But instead I just was like, wah, wah. The whole thing just got shut down.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. What's one thing that you're working on that you're really proud of or have done already?
I mean, I would say that I'm the majority of products that I've launched in my career, I either still use or I would recommend to someone. So I feel really good that both that the companies I've worked for, or brands that I've worked with, are things I'm proud of, and also that I've been fortunate to work with leaders who really value integrity and transparency. I haven't. I don't think that I've sold any snake oil. That is not my goal, and it's not something I would feel good about. So always kind of digging in and making sure that the product is based on a real insight and you really are bringing value to consumers. I think that's something, if you can look back on your career and say that you feel really good about the things that you brought into the market, I think that's a great place to be.
Yeah, good for you. Because I can tell you firsthand that the first brand I ever worked on, I probably can't say that about. And then I realized, I don't think I want to be selling this ever again. Hey, I want to look back and ask you a quick question, because it was in my head and then I kind of got sidetracked with the story. You had said like writing that love letter. I just want to hear from your words kind of, I don't want to be assumptive what you mean by that. Because if I'm in the audience right now and I'm thinking this, I'm going, how do I write a love letter about my own personal brand? Or how do I write a love letter about the company, the brands and products that I work for, or my own business? So we just talk about how you think about what that love letter is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, there's the brainstorming love letter, right? And then there's like the legal reviewed, copywritten love letter. But I think it starts with the brainstorming love letter, where you really look at whatever your competitive framework is, right? Like, other dog foods or whatever it is. And you look around and you say, what are the big things that they're known for, that they're communicating? How is my product different? And what is the organization? What gets us up in the morning that brings us to compete, that's really different and unique about our products?
Yeah.
So at Champion, the amount of meat in our products, the percentage of the recipe that's animal ingredients, people believe in this very strongly. And a lot of our competitors are, offering much less real meat in their products, and dogs are carnivores and all that good stuff. Yeah. So people are passionate about it. And I think you have to do that exercise of what business are we really in, and what's really unique about what we're doing, and put all the facts or all the dream language out on a page, and then figure out if they cluster together, if there's certain clusters you want to focus on. And then once you really get there, then you're into the wordsmithing of what's the perfect way to say it.
Right. To the public.
But you shouldn't give short shrift to that brainstorming phase, because sometimes, like I found entering Champion, that there was a lot of things that were just assumed about our products. Well, of course, people know that we have a lot of meat in our products. Well, yeah, but how can we dimensionalize that in a way that would be more telegraphic on package, or more easily understood? So I think that's our job. As a marketer, I consider that my job, to kind of dig deeper, ask more, and figure out ways that we can bring those stories out and bring those love letters out, because people don't want to buy products that are just so or just the same copycat type of products. They want to understand what's different about your product.
So two things on that. One is, so we have an online magazine called Everyday Innovators, digital magazine. So it's like innovation tools and resources. And in this upcoming month, in October, we have an Everyday Innovators Manifesto, because we believed it was so important for everybody to really know what we stand for, what makes us different, and what you stand for as part of our community, because we're kind of in this together, whether you're a customer of dog food or you're part of an innovation community or kind of whatever it is, right? We really are in this together. So I love this idea of a love note. I also think or love letter. I also think it helps your employees really know why they come to work too, because some days are great and some days kind of suck, and some decisions are great and some are kind of hard. So I love it, because I think it helps you both internally and externally. And I love this idea as an exercise. Like, I hope everybody who's listening and watching and reading goes out and actually does that exercise that Jennifer's saying about doing just even a brainstorm love letter, just to say what you're different about. And the other thing I'd add, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, is I think from what I'm hearing you say, I also think this idea of a love letter helps you vet out where you're saying the same thing as your competitors, or maybe trying to be like them, and you want to be different. So like, I always love when people say, well, like in the consulting world, people will say, well, my tools are actionable. I'm like, well, who doesn't say that? Right? Like, what is it really that's different about you? So when you were talking about the meat quantity and all that, it makes me think, oh, this is really valuable in helping me vet out what makes me different and kind of not putting the other stuff aside, but not trying to scream that at the top of my lungs.
Absolutely. I mean, it can really help you realize what things truly are different, truly are differentiated. And sometimes there are things that are right under your nose that you just haven't found the right language to make it pop.
Yeah.
That's really, those are the, the wins that you can bring where you can unlock kind of the story to a much larger audience.
Yeah, that's so good. All right. So we're almost out of time. I can't even believe it. So I got two last questions for you. One is, what's your advice for other everyday innovators out there looking to differentiate themselves and make an impact, I think, the way you have over at Champion and with Acana Foods?
So I think two things I would say is if you have an idea or if you're developing ideas, right, the ones that I have seen work really well are ones that are aligned with trends, like macro trends that are out there. And we, especially as marketers, we think of ourselves as having our fingers on the pulse, but sometimes we are so busy, we're not taking the time to kind of see what's going on in the outside world.
I really understand it. Like you see it over here and you're like, yeah, I'll get to that.
Right. So an example for pet food might be humanization, right? So you say, wow, people are spending a lot of money on pet food. They're doing all these different services for their dogs. Well, what that trend is for us is humanization. So people view their pets as part of the family. So their lens on what they're willing to spend or what they're going to invest in is similar to what it would be for a family member now. So that's a huge trend that's driving our category. So I would ask your listeners, what are the trends that are driving their category? It might be right in front of them, but they're just not thinking about. And then the second thing is to really have true insights. So it can't just be, another copycat product or, entering in with the same set of benefits. So really make a case around a need that you're meeting that other similar products don't meet. And I've always had really good luck doing having consumer research help to fill that gap. So listening to consumers, listening to their experience, going into their homes, if it's not COVID, whatever it can be, so that you can get closer and really hear it in their words, what it is that they're needing. And the power of that type of an insight usually will translate into really good purchase interest scores, really good reception from your management. It's when you're trying to make it up and it doesn't really exist. That's when things don't gel as well.
Well, and I think often what I found in my many years in business is that the thing that I think is the insight is not really how the customer would say it or even articulate it. And one of my favorite things to do over the years, and I've done more than I can count, is going into people's homes, doing ethnographies. And like, if I'm doing a breakfast project, going and having breakfast with them or commuting to work with them, or I've done a lot of interesting things, going shopping at Walgreens with them. Like it's so much fun, but it gives you so much, because it's not just what they say, it's what they do as well. And it's so interesting. All right. So my last question for you is, what's one thing we'd be surprised to learn about you? So it could be a hobby, a passion, just something I'd be like, Jennifer, that surprises me about you.
Okay. Weird surprise is that I was a Russian major in college.
Oh,
I think it was,
why?
I think it was the futurist, it was like the time geopolitically. And I thought, Russia is going to be running the world and they'll need people who can come in and conduct business with Russia. And also it was just fascinating. It's just a really difficult language to learn. And I got to study abroad over there and just kind of pour myself into that. I sort of think that the different categories that I've worked in and products that I've worked on is kind of like learning a language in a way. You're kind of learning all the buzzwords, all the acronyms of that industry, all the things that consumers value. So maybe learning a hard language early on was something that helped lend to my success.
Well, that's kudos. And so you're right. That is surprising. Thank you. I love this question because I just never know what I'm going to find out about people. But also I love it because Russian is so different than English. Like there's just not the same crossover. Like, Spanish is a great language to learn as well, but there's crossover, right? Like where Russian is just so drastically different.
Yes, it is. And I'm drastically rusty, but I'm still proud.
Do you get to practice? Do you get to speak it at all on a regular basis anymore?
It's hard. You have to seek it out, and I have to be good about it. So, but I love when I hear it randomly. Ooh, sounds so pretty.
You know what's funny about that is whoever's speaking it is probably in line at the bank, and they think nobody understands them because why? Like, how many people speak Russian? You're over there like, I know. That's what I speak a little bit of Hebrew from back when I was born in Israel, but I grew up here. But it's very rusty. But when I hear people speak it, they're like talking about other people in line, and I'm like, I know what you're saying. All right, Jennifer, this has been fantastic. And hey, for everybody out there, I know you're going, but tomorrow, where do I go get this amazing rescue dog food? So we will put all the links in the show note. And Jennifer, if it's okay with you, we'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile so people can connect there if they want to. But I would love, I mean, we are, as you know, I'm a huge dog lover, and I think they're I think you said in the beginning, but they are your friend. They're unconditional love. They relieve stress. They protect you. I mean, there's just nothing bad about a dog. So they're like the only thing I wish is that they lived a little longer. That's it. But
exactly.
We'll put those links in the show notes so that anyone who wants to go get it can.
Great.
Well, thank you. It's been great.
Thanks for inviting me. This was fun.